What's going on, guys? It's the Bigs Podcast, episode number 165. And today we're going to finish up catching you guys up on all the transactions that have happened in this offseason. Get you ready for our ranking shows that begin next week. With me, as always, from Denver, Colorado, Jason Ashby. Jason, you ready for these ranking shows next week? Are you excited?
I'm excited. Am I ready? Maybe. But I am excited. I'm stoked for it. I know we have a lot of good stuff coming up, and yeah, I can't wait to get it started. Look, uh, fantasy football is over. Baseball is coming into the limelight back. So yeah, I am pumped. I'm ready to go, and yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Football is over. Congratulations to the fantasy football champions this year, and hope you guys had fun. But it's time to talk baseball because it is time to get these leagues launched. It's time to start doing your homework and getting ready for the bigs season. Let's dive into this thing, man. There have been a ton of moves here this past couple of weeks. The Washington Nationals have been very, very busy. First of all, they re-signed Trevor Williams to a 2-year deal. He's probably going to be a rotation piece, and he was actually really good for them the last couple of years. So I happen to like this signing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for a 1 year, $9 million deal, like it's kind of chump change, and he could be a real solid piece for this rotation that has a bunch of question marks. So as long as he's healthy, this is a dude.
Yeah. Trevor Williams, now Mike Soroka is well on that 1 year, $9 million deal. Remember when he was good before he hurt his Achilles back in 2020?
Dude, like, and I remember watching that game going, like, I felt so bad for him because,
Mm-hmm.
like, he was so good, and then, like, that happened against us, and, like, it was a nothing, like, it was just, he just fell off the mound. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really felt, there aren't many Braves I feel bad for. Him, I felt bad for.
Yeah, he's had a really rough go of it ever since that
Yeah.
injury. Was on the White Sox last year, was not all that great either. So hopefully a fresh start and a new slate for him, all with the Washington Nationals. Third big Washington Nationals signing of the offseason is going to Josh Bell, 1 year, $6 million. I guess he's gonna DH because they just traded for Nathaniel Lowe. So like first base is kind of filled, so probably just a DH, but it'll be interesting to see what he's capable of in Washington.
Yeah. I mean, he's no stranger to them. He's been there before. I think he first base against left-handers if they're gonna shield low from lefties.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be an everyday guy, being a switch hitter that he is. So, yeah, we'll see what they do. But it's if nothing else, it's good protection for the top of that lineup.
I agree with that. I don't think this lineup is going to compete this year, but they've got a nice young core that's coming along, and this is a nice stopgap 1 year deal for him
Mhm.
to try to prove it. Maybe they flip him at the deadline if he's having a nice season and they get a prospect in return. So this is going to be an interesting little deal for the Nationals, an interesting transition year from rebuilding to competing, and this is that middle year where they start to put it all together.
Right.
The Oakland Athletics are no longer a thing. They're the West
Nope.
Sacramento Athletics of the California state in the United States. They are spending money, which is surprising enough. They went out and signed Gio Urshela 1 year, 2.15 million dollars. He looks to be the third baseman for them this year. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't see there's anybody else really to take that away from him. So yeah, he's the third baseman. Which again, I think is a nice little veteran piece in this very young lineup. It's not gonna make or break their playoff chances, but just be a steadying presence in that lineup.
Yeah, their playoff chances hinge on whether or not, Brent Rooker has a third great season in a row. Lawrence Butler comes a little bit more, takes a step forward. JJ Bleday, another guy that could could see some real important at bats for this team. And don't sleep on Shea Langoliers. Next week we're doing catcher rankings. I want to see where he ends up in your rankings because that kid had a pretty nice year this past year.
He did, and not to give too much away, but catcher is a pretty thin position this year. So, it's yeah. I probably have him higher than I want to, but we'll get into that next week.
Yeah. Max Kepler leaves Minnesota finally, and he gets a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. He's going to be a left fielder for the first time in his career. He's played predominantly in right field for the Minnesota Twins, so he shifts over to left with Nick Castellanos already there. This really does bad things for the playing time of Brandon Marsh, does interesting things for the playing time of Johan Rojas. I find it interesting what's going to happen there, but I think getting out of Minnesota is going to do him very well, and I could see him having a pretty good season in Philly.
Yeah, yeah. I think in that ballpark, he can get 20, 25 homers at least.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Marsh might get the playing time, being that he's the lefty swinger, so he might see the platoon more than Rojas. But I think Rojas is probably more of a defensive replacement, maybe for
Mm-hmm.
Kepler. Maybe move Marsh over to left and put Rojas into center. But there's definitely options there in Philly.
Yeah, and most certainly he's going to play every day on this 1-year deal. And again,
Mhm.
if the Phillies are going to go deep, this is a great guy to extend that lineup, see the bottom of that lineup actually have some punch to it rather than last year when we saw guys like Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas hitting frequently at the bottom of that lineup.
All right.
Pat Sandoval is going to the Boston Red Sox, 2 years, $18.5 million. He's coming off of an injury, so he's going to be pitching in the back half of 2025. But I like this deal for the Red Sox. They've done this a couple of times before, and now we'll get to see what Pat Sandoval has outside of LA because the Angels are just a dumpster fire at this point, and them letting this guy walk is really interesting. They bring in Kikuchi, but they let this dude walk. As for what it means for the Red Sox, how do you like the fit, Pat Sandoval in Boston?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic, and we'll get into more Red Sox moves. But this rotation has a lot of options in it, especially when you consider the guys who are coming back from injury, the Lucas Giolitos, the Garrett Whitlocks, so like, and then Sandoval, there's a lot of pieces here. There's depth. There's lots and lots of depth. I don't know if there's any sure thing in this rotation, even with the moves that we'll cover in a second, but there's definitely a lot of depth.
And the Red Sox did sign Walker Buehler as well 1 year, $21.05 million. Got to get that last little $50,000 in there at the end. It's the qualifying offer
Yeah.
was that amount this year. The Dodgers did not extend it to him, but the Boston Red Sox give it to him here after Nick Pivetta turned them down for that amount of money. So he gets the Pivetta money, and it's a prove it deal for Buehler, who was bad in the regular season but figured something out in the postseason. He closed out the World Series for the Dodgers. I think this is a really under the radar move. And now when you put Garrett Crochet at the top with Walker Buehler here, you mentioned Lucas Giolito, who's going to have a full season this year. Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo. We talked about Pat Sandoval. Like, you can never have too many arms.
Cutter
And this,
Crawford, like there are guys in this rotation, and I tell you what, I'm looking at roster resource, and they have Walker Buehler as the 5 in this rotation. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's a number 2. I think he's behind Crochet, and then you move everybody else down a click. I think this is a great signing for them, and a great signing for him as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is going to be a really good situation for him to play this year out. Maybe the Red Sox aren't in it at the deadline and they trade him to get a prospect, but I think they're really trying to compete here against the
Oh yeah.
Yankees this year. And I think they're going to try to go for it this year. This might be a great way for Bueller to reestablish himself, go into free agency next year, and get himself a big contract.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Phillies weren't done. They sent 2 minor league prospects down to Miami and they get Jesus Luzardo. This rotation is now very interesting with Wheeler, Nola, Jesus Luzardo, Christopher Sanchez, and Ranger Suarez. I feel like that's the five.
It is. It is, and then Taiwan Walker is just kind of hanging out there as a bullpen piece, as
Yeah,
something that nobody wants to touch.
as a
But
mess is what he
yeah,
is.
but he's there. He is there.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. This rotation is just filthy right now.
They're going to be a dangerous team in the NL East. It's going to be a really cutthroat division this year between us, the Braves, and the Phillies. The Braves have not done a damn thing this offseason. I find it very interesting they haven't done anything this year. But the
Yeah,
Phillies are making moves. They're restructuring this lineup. They're restructuring this rotation without doing too much and blowing it all up. They're bringing in some interesting pieces. Luzardo is going to be there for at least the next 2 years. Hopefully, he can stay healthy. That's the one thing about this guy is that we haven't seen a real full season from this guy
no.
because he's not capable of staying on the field.
But if you're the Phillies, you can take that chance because you do have Taiwan Walker who can slide in if something were to happen to Luzardo. So they also signed Joe Ross as another kind of long guy who can sub
Mhm.
into the rotation if need be. So they have pieces if Luzardo falls apart again.
Yeah, if he misses time, they do have options. They're not great. They're not as good as, say, Cutter Crawford or guys in Boston that we talked about, but
Right.
they're guys. They're guys who will throw and eat innings, hopefully enough to supplant any injuries that may occur.
Yeah.
There was a great game of first baseman roulette. That was an incredible day to see all of the things that
Dude, it was
happened.
amazing.
The Astros went out and signed Christian Walker. That was the first domino to fall. 3 years, $60 million. And let's talk about that one specifically.
Yeah.
He slides in at first base, moving Isaac Paredes across the diamond to third. It spells the end of Alex Bregman. It spells the end of the trade talks with the Cardinals for Nolan Arenado. This is going to be the team going forward. And all of a sudden, the Houston Astros look like they've just retooled and are primed to win the AL West again.
Yeah, I don't love the outfield of
Mhm.
the Chas McCormick, Jake Myers, like Taylor Trammell. Like I think they could probably look to find another cheap outfielder out there. But yeah, they are looking really strong this year.
Jurickson Profar would be a really nice fit there. Anthony
I love that.
Santander could also fit really nicely there. One of those two guys, I would imagine, finds their way there. But at the same time, this is Houston. They've always gotten kids coming up through the minors, and if they really think Jake Myers or Chas McCormick are the guy, okay, I just have to believe in it because they've done it for this long.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I do feel like uh Jurickson Profar is like a perfect fit here,
Yeah,
but you're right. But you're right. They can go with what they got and probably be just fine.
yeah. The second domino to fall was that the Cleveland Guardians sent Josh Naylor to the Diamondbacks for professional wrestling name Slade Ciccone. Josh Naylor, I said earlier this offseason, it wouldn't shock me if this guy moved because he's a free agent at the end of 2025. The Guardians are known for getting rid of guys before they become free agents and retooling their farm system and continuing their success. My fear is that there's not really a whole lot in that lineup now outside of Josh Naylor. Like with Josh Naylor's departure, outside of Jose Ramirez, there's not a whole lot there, but we've seen it before and they continue to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot's gonna hinge on Stephen Kwan to get on
Mm-hmm.
base in front of Ramirez, and guys like Lane Thomas and Bo Naylor and Kyle Manzardo. These guys are gonna have to step up and show that they can produce at the big league level.
Kyle Manzardo is the guy to watch on that team. You heard it here first. I really like that kid. They got him from Tampa in the Aaron Savale trade a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think his time is now because it's going to be one of those situations where they don't have a whole lot of more options beyond something we're going to talk about here in a moment. But let's talk about Josh Naylor and the fit in Arizona because
Yeah.
I find it very, very intriguing. I think that ballpark will play well to his power. I think that lineup is really equipped to take a step forward and compete for a wild card this year. They're not going to win the West. The Dodgers are still the Dodgers, but I think they can get back to a wild card. This team was in the World Series just 2 years ago. I think that they're ready to take a big step forward.
Yeah, and especially when we'll cover it off another move they made later on. But this, I mean, top to bottom, this team looks like a contender. They look like a competing team that is ready to be in the postseason. And I don't know if I love Pavin Smith on an everyday basis, but if that's their weak link, okay, maybe as an everyday guy, maybe he gets 10, 15 home runs. Like he doesn't need to be the guy, but Josh Naylor is a great fit in this lineup. He hits, right behind Ketel Marte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a fantastic team altogether.
Yeah, Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, and Josh Naylor. That's a hell of a trio to have at the top of your lineup. And they're going to score a lot of runs. They're going to run a whole bunch. They're going to be a fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, I really like this team.
The Guardians did replace Josh Naylor with Carlos Santana, 1 year, $12 million for the 39-year-old who's coming home to finish his career with Cleveland. Maybe they flip him at the deadline if they're somehow out of it, but I doubt it. And this guy in Cleveland was an absolute stud. I see absolutely no reason he doesn't just continue to do what he does, get on base, hit about 20 homers, drive in about 60 or 70 runs. And hitting right behind Jose Ramirez is not a bad situation to be in.
No, and again, so you have Juan Manzardo, Ramirez, and Santana. Like, if these guys live up, that's not a bad top four. It's just there's definitely some question marks, and it's going to be interesting to see how they can move forward without Naylor, and we talked about it last show without Andres Jimenez. I think that's a big piece
Mm-hmm.
missing from this lineup too.
Yeah, that gold glove defense in the infield is really important. But again, we'll have to see who breaks camp as the second baseman for the Guardians. Unless they go out and sign somebody, there's really a job to be had there.
Oh yeah,
And the Guardians, they rely on run prevention, they rely on their defense. Brian Rocchio's still there. He's a really good shortstop. He doesn't have much of a bat, but there again, who does in this lineup?
right. So yeah, it's gonna be about speed and defense and getting on base.
Mm-hmm. And letting Jose Ramirez go 40-40 again.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. The Yankees looked around and said, oh shit, we better get in on this first base roulette because we need somebody. They signed Paul Goldschmidt, 1 year, $12.5 million. I actually really love this fit to get Paul Goldschmidt right and have him in the lineup right near Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. I think this is going to be a very, very interesting fit this year for Paul Goldschmidt. I don't think that this is his final year in the majors. I think he goes out and gets another deal next year. But we'll always have this 1 year. Hey, remember when Paul Goldschmidt was a Yankee?
Yeah, yeah. You're right. It is nice seeing him next to Aaron Judge, and but I think it's pretty safe to say we're probably on the back half of his decline, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a good spot for him. I don't know if I'm gonna go near him. I feel like he's 12 homer 60 RBI is kind of guy. Like
Mm.
I don't think that's what I want for my first baseman.
He hit 22 last year, if I remember right. Drove in somewhere near 70 RBIs. So like it is a down year from what he's done in the past. But at
Yeah,
37 or 38 years old, I don't necessarily hate it if you can get him on a really nice discount. I would have to get him past round 12 in the bigs in order for me to feel good about it. And by then, I probably already have a first baseman anyway.
right. So maybe he's just like as a backup kind of thing, at this
Right.
point. And for that to happen, it has to be pretty late in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. The final domino that fell was the more surprising one was the Washington Nationals once again retooling their team. They acquired Nathaniel Lowe for left-handed reliever Robert Garcia. Garcia, he goes to the bullpen in Texas. Whatever. I don't know who's closing there. Maybe he does. We'll see in spring training. But Nathaniel Lowe gets out of Texas and heads to Washington. I don't like this fit very much at all. I don't think it's a good ballpark shift for him. Certainly not a good lineup shift. He doesn't have Corey Seager and Marcus Semien hitting in front of him. Instead, he's got C.J. Abrams and not a whole lot else.
I mean, he's got Dylan Cruz and James Wood. So like if these kids are something for real, maybe there's something there, but it's tough to, to count on that after, what, a combined, 400 or so plate appearances between the two of them. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it look, they're still building. I think is a free agent after next year, I
I
believe.
think so. I think they get a second year out of him for this.
Yeah. So, if 2025 is still kind of like a building year, maybe 2026 is the year that they're shooting for. When guys like maybe, Luis Garcia, Kyber Ruiz, Jacob Young can take another step forward.
Hmm. So go ahead and rank these five guys for me. These five first basemen that we put to new teams here. I'll go first, and I'll say that Josh Naylor is number one for me. Christian Walker, very close, number two. Carlos Santana actually probably is my number three, going back to Cleveland, and then Goldschmidt and Lowe.
So right now I have it as Naylor, Lowe, Walker, Goldschmidt, and Santana.
Wow. Okay, you like yourself some Nathaniel Lowe. Got him above Christian Walker.
Yeah, because I mean the lineup is the lineup, but he's still a good hitter. Like you
Mhm.
look at his numbers, like last year, 361 on base, 16 home runs and 69 RBIs. I mean, I think he's still, say what you will about the lineup in the ballpark. I think he's still going to be just fine.
Okay. Let's hope for a bounce back season. There was a year where he had like 40 doubles and hit 280, and it was really really nice.
Yeah, he was banged up a little bit last year too.
Hmm.
So if he's healthy, I'm not too worried. He get hit right in the middle of the lineup, and it's not a stud lineup, but it's an interesting lineup. It's an intriguing lineup, and if they take a step forward, he's gonna be right in the middle of it. So I like him.
Okay. The New York Yankees were not done. They did sign Paul Goldschmidt. They also traded away Jose Trevino to the Reds for Fernando Cruz. Fernando Cruz is an interesting name. He had a really high strikeout rate. He was very, very good. I think in the back end of the bullpen, in front of Devin Williams, probably in front of Luke Weaver, but right there in the seventh, sixth, seventh inning mix
Yeah,
for the New York Yankees. Very nice move for them.
yeah, and they bring him in. They did bring back Jonathan Loizaga as well. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, it's a solid bullpen. They still have Ian Hamilton in there as well. So yeah, this is a tough bullpen. You get into the sixth or seventh with a lead, looks pretty locked up.
Yeah, and that's a great thing for the Yankees to shorten the game because Garrett Cole is aging a little bit here. He's going to be, I think, 34 this year. They signed Max Fried, but they've got a lot of question marks after those guys with Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, Clark Schmidt. There's a lot of guys there, but the question is how much length can you get out of them?
Right.
As for Trevino, nice backup guy for the Reds, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a solid, like I said, solid backup. Stevenson is the guy. Tyler Stevenson is the guy there, but nothing wrong with having a veteran backup, to be behind him.
So, interesting question: Tyler Stevenson or Austin Wells?
All right, are we sneak peeking here? I
A sneak
have
peek, little sneak peek. I've got them
I
back
have
to back in my rankings, but I won't tell you which one's higher.
they're not quite back to back, but they're very close in mine. I do have Stevenson above.
Okay, I think I tend to agree with you. I think that's how I've got it as well.
Yep.
The Mets get their guy at the top of the rotation. We bring back Sean Manaea for the exact same money that the Texas Rangers paid Nate Eovaldi, 3 years, $75 million. Let's hope that this new arm slot and what we saw in the second half of last year is what we're going to get out of this guy because this is a guy we absolutely need to rely on in 2025 if we plan on competing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to imagine, it's hard to fathom the fact that, we signed him last year as kind of like a flyer dude, and now we're signing him as the ace of the staff, like a year later.
Mhm.
It's pretty incredible. But I think he showed what he showed on the mound was really impressive. But his demeanor, his ability to kind of be a fun clubhouse guy, he was serious on the mound, but like he loved the fans. He seemed to just really fit in this culture that they grew. And so I love having him back. Him and Frankie Montas, they go back to their Oakland days. So I like that. Paul Blackburn as well. So like there's a chemistry there, and I like that almost as much as what they do on the field.
Yeah, I was going to mention Frankie Montas as well, but you beat me to it. This pairing might just bring Frankie Montas back to maybe not his form that we saw in Oakland, but somewhere close to it would be really nice.
Yeah.
Somewhere around a 4 ERA, but I want to see 150 innings like they got last year out of him. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a great fit. I love Mania in the rotation. It just extends that rotation with Kodai Senga and the rest of our rotation. Jock Peterson signs a 2-year, $37 million deal with the Rangers and opt out after the first season so he can go back into free agency and get a better deal if he balls out. He's going to be their DH this year, it seems like, at least against right handers. Might see some time at first base. Maybe. I don't
Maybe.
know.
I mean, they have Jake Berger kind of entrenched there, so but I don't see where he steps foot in the outfield ever again. So I
Yeah.
think he is just a DH, um, but one that can absolutely just slug. I mean, he hit 23 home runs last year
Mhm.
in 450 plate appearances. Like it was a really great year.
Yeah,
Like
he balled out in Arizona. I was
yeah,
shocked that Arizona would let him walk, but there again, they went and got Josh Naylor to replace him. So,
right. But yeah, I mean, he slides in right in the middle of that lineup. He basically replaces Nathaniel Lowe
mhm.
in this lineup, and I think it's a great fit for him.
I think so too. I think it's going to be a very interesting race in the AL West between Texas and Houston this year. But this signing certainly reminds us that these Rangers were the World Series champions just 2 years ago. They had an off year last year, and one can point to the World Series hangover as the reason for that. Let's see what they do in 2025. Maybe we see a big bounce back from that team.
For sure, for sure.
In one of the least surprising moves of the offseason, Andrew McCutchen goes back to Pittsburgh, 1 year, $5 million. Pittsburgh, they've got themselves some pieces, Skeens and Cruz and Reynolds, and that's about it. I mean, McCutchen was nice. He gets on base at a decent clip. I just don't know how much he's got left and how much more he's going to have this year.
This just feels like Ryan Zimmerman with the Nationals. Like
Mhm.
just keep signing him to and let him just play out the rest of his career there. I mean, he's 38 years old. I can't imagine that there's too much more. He did hit 20 home runs last year, so it's
Mhm.
not nothing. Um, Roster Resource has him pegged to be the cleanup hitter in that lineup, which speaks to that lineup, I guess.
Yeah.
But look, are they going to compete? No, but they'll be pesky.
Spencer Horwitz is their first baseman, apparently. Like, I thought Anthony Rizzo would be a perfect fit there. And that could still happen. There's nothing saying that it couldn't.
Yeah, but it just seems like they might be content with what they got.
Yeah. And they don't ever spend. So for them to bring back Andrew McCutchen on this $5 million deal is a big deal in Pittsburgh front office.
Yeah,
Glaber Torres is no longer a New York Yankee. He moves to Detroit and becomes the new second baseman, 1 year, $15 million. They're moving Colt Keith to first base, apparently. Jace Young is going to be their third baseman unless Alex Bregman ends up there as well. So the big question is, what the hell do they do with Spencer Torkelson?
I I don't know. Like, I mean, he he has nothing left to prove in the minors. I know he's been a disaster-ish in the majors. He's been a disappointment, but can you just stash him down in AAA? Like, trade the guy then. Like, there has to be a trade, right? I mean, shore up the bullpen, maybe or something.
Go get you Luis Castillo from Seattle. Doesn't that make a
Okay.
ton of sense? Like, go
It,
get Luis
yeah.
Castillo, trade Spencer Torkelson and some younger prospects, and you've got the guy to go with Scooble at the top of that rotation.
Yeah. You're right. That just makes the most sense. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet.
I know that there have been a lot of rumors Luis Castillo was linked to the Mets for a period of time as well.
Hmm.
I just think Seattle is asking for too much, and this is a deal that I think is
I
feasible. I
I
just don't
wonder
know if Seattle says yes.
I wonder if like this, especially like Luis Castillo trade and any other pitchers on the market. Like I wonder if a lot of it is hinging on this Roki Sasaki. Where he's going to land because I know the Tigers. I do believe the Tigers got a meeting with him,
Mhm.
and all these other the Mets and the Giants and all these other teams did, and so we're not seeing much on the trade market for pitchers because I know a lot of teams are in on this dude.
Yeah, Roki Sasaki is going to come off the market sometime in the next couple of weeks. He has until I think it's the 15th of January to make a
Yeah.
decision, or else he goes back to Japan. And he's not going to do that.
No.
He's here. He's going to pitch for somebody in 2025. The question is who. We will certainly be watching that and hoping that our Mets sign him, hopefully. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. Anything's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
As for the fit of Glaber Torres in Detroit, what do you think about that?
You know what? I like it. I think he is definitely the epitome of a change of scenery kind of dude. I think he definitely was uh done in the Bronx. I like him. I like him again a veteran presence in this relatively young lineup. Maybe he even brings something out of Javi Baez back, like that could be. But like right now, Colt Keith, Chase Young, Trey Sweeney, these dudes are going to need some veteran presence in that lineup, and I think he's not going to again not going to light the world on fire, but 15, 20 home runs is just serviceable.
Yeah, somewhere between 15 and 20 homers, 15 to 20 steals seems like a nice season for Glaber Torres. Get himself another contract somewhere else at the end of the 1 year deal.
Yep.
My concern is the defense because Glaber Torres is awful at second base. Javi Baez is awful at shortstop. This middle infield could be a disaster and could really hamstring this team that was really surprising, became a playoff team this past year. I wonder if this fit might end up hampering them this year and maybe they miss the playoffs this year.
It's gonna be it's gonna be close. I mean, we saw how close it was, this past year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's gonna. There's no reason to think it's gonna be, any less close. There's a lot of good teams in this division, not named the White
Yeah.
Sox.
Yeah, I mean the Royals are going to be still competitive. They have done very little this offseason, but it'll be interesting to see if they end up with somebody like Anthony Santander as well.
Yeah,
Um, and the Twins, I mean, the Twins were leading the division and missed the playoffs and finished fourth in that division. So, like, what are they doing?
yeah.
I've heard rumors that they're going to move Pablo Lopez. I've heard rumors that they're going to move Carlos Correa. They're trying to cut payroll. It seems like they're on the decline, but you never know.
Yeah. And the Guardians are, we talked about. So like it's gonna be a good division, I think. But I still like the Tigers. It seems like they're gonna give Trey Sweeney some run at shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his defense level is, but if he
Got
can
to be
bring
better than Baez, right?
right, right. So, even if it's, mediocre, it's a step above. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like this lineup. I don't know how I feel about Jake Rogers as an everyday catcher. Um, but
Yeah.
but other than that, I like this lineup.
Okay. Corbin Burns signed a 6 year, $210 million deal, big blockbuster deal with the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, they
That was
came out of nowhere.
unexpected. We had heard the Blue Jays, we heard the Giants, we heard the Yankees, we heard the Mets, we heard a ton of teams, and it's the Diamondbacks who land him, who's at the end of the day, this is what they do, right? They signed Zach Greinke, they signed Madison Bumgarner, they brought in Eduardo Rodriguez and Jordan Montgomery last year.
Mhm.
Now Corbin Burns is the new anchor of this rotation at the top with Zach Gallen at the 2, Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, Jordan Montgomery, and Brandon Pfaadt. Like, this is another deep rotation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And look, it allows them to, trade off Montgomery if, they feel like he's not, done his part there. Trade him
Mhm.
off and get a prospect or two or get a bullpen piece. But like, or hang on to him and let him be kind of a six-man, like, long relief dude. If Brandon Pfaadt
Mhm.
is not, doesn't have a great year, you plug Montgomery in. It's a deep rotation. I love the signing. I think this really makes the Diamondbacks really legitimate in the West.
So here's a question for you: Corbin Burns or Logan Gilbert?
Right now, I have it as I think I have. Oh, Corbin Burns is definitely above Gilbert.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Spoiler alert: I have Gilbert higher.
I figured you might. I figured you might. Um, but I especially now that he's on a winning team, I like Burns a lot.
Okay. The Dodgers bring back Teoscar Hernandez, 3 years, $66 million. So he gets his big deal. It's kind of smaller than I would have anticipated. I would have expected him to get a little bit more, but it's interesting because 23 million of this is deferred, so it's 15 million and a $15 million team option for 2028. It could be as long as a 4-year deal. But again, this is less money than I had anticipated him making. I'm surprised he doesn't end up in Boston because Boston needs a right-handed hitter badly. So where do they pivot? And how much do you love Teoscar going back to LA?
Yeah, I think this was always going to be the case. I think he was always going to go back there. I am surprised it only took $66 million as well. I thought he was going to get like 90, somewhere up in that range.
Mhm.
So I feel like the Dodgers kind of saved a bunch here. Yeah, I mean, we saw what he did last year, 1 year with the Dodgers, and the whole rest of the team is the same. So yeah, I don't see how he has a bad year.
Yeah, they just get to run it back with this team and add Blake Snell at the top of their rotation and call it an off season. Like, I think
Yeah,
the
and look,
Dodgers are done.
look, Michael Conforto's in there too, and he's not nothing as an everyday
Mhm.
left fielder. So yeah, this is another Dodgers just all star roster.
Mhm.
like this is a roster you put together on MLB The Show and go, yay, I'm good.
I'm going to win the World Series every year. Well,
Yeah,
they won the World Series this past year, and there's no reason to think they're not the favorites. They are the betting favorite currently to win the World Series this year. So
yeah,
the rich keep getting richer. It is just so disappointing, especially as a Mets fan who wants to compete in the NL. You just look at the Dodgers and go, how are we going to do this?
right. And the thing is, we are rich. Like we are
Mhm.
the rich, and we get richer, but it doesn't matter because the other rich keep getting richer too. Like we can't, they don't get out of the way.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. They are the evil empire of the 2020s. Nothing is going to change here. So we have some names left. I want to go ahead and figure out where you think these guys are going to land, starting with Anthony Santander. So where do you think he is going to end up when all is said and done?
I feel like Boston makes a whole lot of sense there. I know that there was talks that I've heard that they were talking to the Mariners about Luis Castillo, trying to unload like Yoshida, and maybe like a prospect or something like that. So if they can do that, you bring in Santander and he plugged right in there. So I feel like Boston is a safe landing spot for him.
Okay. I have him going to the Royals. I don't think that they've done enough this offseason to continue to compete in the American League. The American League is wide open this year. I mean, I feel like the Yankees are the favorite to go back, but the Guardians are good. Houston is good. Seattle might be okay, but they
I
need
mean,
some offensive pieces in a hurry. Kansas City is a nice young team. I'd like to see them add one more bat along with Vinny P and Sal Perez and Bobby Witt, obviously.
Don't sleep on the Orioles too. I think they're one starter short of being like a real competing team, but I like this team still. So I think they're gonna be right up in there.
Jack Flaherty's the next name I want to ask you about. Where do you think he's going to land?
I think he can go back to Baltimore.
I think so
Uh,
too.
yeah, yeah, and I think that'd be a perfect fit for him and the team. They need another innings eater. He's healthy. He showed it last year. He's still solid. Put him back in there and make him the number one behind, ahead of Eflin and Grayson.
He was a disaster with them a couple of years ago when he got traded from St. Louis, but I think he's figured things out. His half a season in Detroit and his half a season in LA really did him some good. And I think he can take that and parlay that into a great season and great seasons to come with
Yeah.
Baltimore, should he choose to go there. Let's talk about the closers. Where do you think somebody like Kirby Yates is going to end up?
I can see him going back to Texas. I really feel like there's a fit there. They don't have a closer right now, aside from Jacob Webb and Robert Garcia, the guy they got from Washington. He excelled there. I know he's older, so I don't see him getting more than a one, maybe a 2-year deal or one
Mm-hmm.
with an option, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see him going back to Texas.
Okay. I could see him going there. I could also see him ending up in Toronto. I mean,
Mhm.
Toronto let Jordan Romano go, and they haven't gotten anybody this offseason. They literally have only traded for Andres Jimenez, and that's their offseason so far, despite being in on Soto and being in on Burns and being in on other big name free agents. Nobody wants to play there, apparently, and they've got to do something to try to convince Vlad Guerrero to stay. I just don't think that he's going to. I don't think they're going to be able to. But put somebody at the back end of that bullpen that's competent.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I absolutely could see that. And make Chad Green the setup guy the way he's supposed to be, not the closer,
Mhm.
and give somebody who's a real closer. Yeah, I can see that.
Pete Alonso.
Mets.
Yes, has to
I
be.
it's the only thing that makes sense. We talked about the first baseman roulette, and the only name that was not mentioned was the polar bear.
Exactly.
And I don't know if he was just wanting to wait till the holidays were over, or what, but do it already.
He has turned down a 3-year, $90 million deal with our Mets. So another $30 million on top of what Christian Walker got from Houston. He turned it down. He's expecting somewhere between 150 and $200 million from reports I've heard. I don't think he gets that. I
I
just
don't
don't.
I don't either. I know going into the offseason they were looking at like Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman kind of money, and I don't see it. And the Christian Walker deal, I thought, okay, Christian Walker is getting 20 million per, and Pete Alonso is like 5 years younger than him. So I could see, yeah, a $30 million a year deal made all the sense in the world. And I don't know if he just wants longer years, so maybe give him a 5-year deal. But
Yeah. I think he wants something in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 years in order to lock up the rest of his career. And though I want him to be a Met for life and I want him to wear our uniform for the entire length of his career, I just don't know if that's going to happen. There are teams like Seattle that could swoop in here. The Giants could swoop in here and grab
Giants,
him. There's not a whole lot that screams at me that the Mets have to get him right now, but they have to do something because our corners are covered by Vientos and Beatty right now, and I don't necessarily like that setup.
yeah.
Bring us Pete and get us this 30 homer, 80 to 100 RBI guy right behind Juan Soto.
And keep the same culture and the same atmosphere that worked last year and has worked with him and Nimmo and Lindor. Now you throw in Soto, like, yeah, it has to happen. Just do it already.
Yeah. He was on my wish list for Christmas. It's not going to happen for Christmas. It's not going to happen for New Year's, but maybe sometime in January or closer to my birthday, which is February, we'll see if he is a New York Met. Otherwise, I have a Pete Alonso jersey hanging in my closet that's going to be outdated if he goes somewhere else, and I don't want that to happen. I really don't.
Agreed. Agreed.
The final one I'm going to ask you about is Alex Bregman. And do you think it's Detroit or do you think it's Boston?
I I don't know if I see Boston as the fit. They have Devers, they have Tristan Casas. I mean, unless they make Tristan Casas part of the deal for Luis Castillo, but I heard that they're kind of sour on that. So,
Mhm.
um, I don't see Boston being the fit. Um, Detroit, yeah, but okay. So then, what do you do with the kids? Like,
Trade him for Luis Castillo.
yeah, yeah, all right. But so what? Torkelson and Jace Young for Castillo? Yeah, all right. It could I see it. Um,
Seattle needs bats, and they need bats in the worst possible way. I don't think they're going to go out and spend 180 to 200 million dollars for Alex Bregman, but Detroit certainly might. They've spent a shit ton of money on Javi Baez that they're still eating.
one team out that I know it won't happen because they don't spend money either, but the Milwaukee Brewers could use a bat like him. They have Oliver Dunn penciled in as their third baseman. Whoever,
Yeah.
yeah, uh-huh. So like that would be a fit, but I don't see them shelling out $150 million or $175 million.
Yeah.
They did it for Adamas, so I don't
They
know why
didn't
they
do it for Adamas. They did it for Christian Yelich, but until that contract is over, I don't see them bringing in another big name.
right.
And I
But
think the money that they would have spent on somebody like Bregman, like annually, has gone to Reese Hoskins this year because he opted into his 18 or $20 million deal. So, you know, that guy's still around.
okay.
Yeah. Jason, we are 1 week away from beginning our ranking shows. I'm very, very excited. We are going to begin behind the plate with catcher. Number one catcher this year, obviously, is whom?
It's
William
William.
Contreras. Of course it is. Of
Yeah.
course it is. He's fantastic. Thanks so much for being here with me, man. I'm very excited to have the ranking shows begin next week. Frank Bucco will be with us as well. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Absolutely, sir. It's always a pleasure and Happy New Year all. We're ready for baseball.
Happy 2025. It is we are this close to beginning the season. Yahoo is going to launch the leagues very, very soon after the Super Bowl. So we are anxiously awaiting the NFL playoffs to get the fuck out of the way and let us have our baseball season. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. If you're not subscribed, what the hell are you doing? Go ahead and subscribe, ring the bell, let us so that you know when we post new content. Until next time, guys, it's been real, it's been fun, and it is always real fun in the bigs. We'll see you next time.